Welcome to the Phosphenes Podcast. I'm your host, Krista, and joining me on today's episode is Jay Bhatti, a published author from the UK. We're going to dive into what it takes to write a book, his behind-the-scenes creative process, and some of the other projects that he's been involved in. Jay, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure. Yes.
Now, for our listeners, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about who you are?
I'm Jay. I've been living in the UK my entire life. I had started writing originally in lockdown, as everyone did when you're stuck at home with nothing to do. And due to my work and furlong, I was kept longer on because the company can make money keeping me off work, which was ironic. So I had all this extra time around. And at the same time, I was working on making a short film, which I did later on. But because of the spare time, I started writing a plot line for what a story idea could be. Then I was like, well, because it's set over one day, you don't really see many books like that. So I started playing around with it. Then after about a year, I realized this is actually something and not just some random idea. And so I kept developing it, and then boom, it came to the first book. Then when I had finished it, I was like, I have all this knowledge and this characters I like, so I want to keep exploring it. So that's what I did. And 3 years later now, I finished the second one. And so the plan is to do another 3 more to complete an entire series. And then if I never write anything again, that's my dream. That's the idea. And then in theory, like not like in sense, like you could sell it on to like a studio streaming service and then they can make that into a show or something like that. Like that's the dream. Like if it ever happens, happens. Because originally I did a short course originally back in London a couple years, like many years ago now, and with that it was just skill-based tools, just learn about filmmaking and stuff. Because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was 19 trying to figure out still. And so then I went doing this because, well, okay, this might be an interesting avenue to go to because you didn't need any qualifications. It was just basically skill based, like learning cameras, learning sound, lighting. And so through that, I started doing some work like in the room, all the stuff, and then realized, okay, I want to make my own one because I'm going nowhere. And they always say you need experience, but they won't hire anyone with experience, but you can't get experience unless you get hired, all that crap. And
Right.
so I'm like, okay, I'm going to make one and just a proper one. And so went out doing it. And so I made it originally I was going to shoot it just before COVID. COVID happened, so it got delayed. So I shot it just in September, like in a good month, good week before everything happened, and then got edited myself, all the stuff. Then went around some festivals, won a few awards and stuff. So it was pretty cool. But because it's ironically more cheaper to write novels and stuff and produce self-published those compared to making a short, I've continued to do novels instead of trying to push my other short film. Because for that one, it needs a good chunk of money to make it properly. The next one.
And you need crew, you need actors, there's a
Yeah,
bunch of
exactly as well.
people involved, whereas writing a novel, it's more self-driven, self-directed, and really just you involved until we get to the final stages.
Yeah, and with because it's just a novel and short, you can tell the entire story out, and it's like you much different with a short. You're trying to tell just a partial of story or something, and so it's much more grounder and so that. But I always want to go back to it because it's just I like the idea of just playing with it because it's visual storytelling, which is different completely to how you write. So it's like you're just in different plot ballpark, you do different skills, and it's just so much fun just collaborating with a crew. But yeah, cost wise, you need a whole crew. Like you can get away sometimes with certain people, but if you want to do it properly, you need a proper sound recorder, you need a proper DP, camera operators, raffers, gunners, you need assistant directors, all this stuff. And it depends how many crew you want. Like for the one I want to make, it's a different story where a guy is basically doing a sort of therapy session, like Inception, where he's going back in his head to basically relive memories and stuff to sort of deal with trauma that way. And so because of it, you basically have one actor looking at his past self, which is basically basically a young guy, like 3 years old, 5, 18-year-old. And because of that, you're different actors playing back and forth and stuff. So for that, it's quite costly and quite logistic wise. So it's quite a problem to do that. So I've looked for funding and stuff, but you get so many people submitting for stuff. It's like you get the 1% of the people, and it's like never you.
Well, it sounds like a really interesting premise. And then there's also the possibility of your books being picked up to be films down the road, and you could be involved in that process as
Oh
well.
yeah, I've always said that like if someone does that, I want someone else has to write the scripts because I will be like too attached to thinking, okay, I need someone else to give that and stuff like this is how you do in a visual storytelling method. This will cut, this will improve, expand upon. Then I would come and saying, oh yeah, that's fine doing that, and I just want to be involved in that process.
Yeah.
Plus, effectively also involved in casting for the main character. Like I know that character back to front. I know everything about my main character, Naomi Ripley. So that spies everything I want, and it's really an expression of me most of the time, just in a different environment because most of my stuff I'm doing at the same time.
Now, for someone who's never picked up one of your books before, can you give us just a short introduction as to what they're about?
Oh yeah, effectively the books are a about a British agent chasing down a different target. So the first one is about a it's a cat and mouse game between a rogue agent in the being hired to kill a bunch of MPs in the UK, and the agent's chase to stop him over one day, day in the section. Second one is a week, which is about an escaped gun runner in London and trying to basically sell on her she's trying to settle her debts she has with problems she has with her friends and relationships, but at the same time the agent is basically no wait let me restart. For the second one is about an escaped gun runner, and so the agent's trying to chase her down, but also at the same time dealing with her relationship problems, with the fact her commitment to her work, and the fact of her guilt over losing the gun runner whose job it was as they are, to her responsibility for it. So it's all about a cat and mouse game and trying to track her down. So since she has to go undercover, she has to do stuff you wouldn't expect her to do in situations like this, and trying to chase down the target. What the gunrunner is basically trying to settle her debts and the problems she's got in her own world, and basically they all complement trying to stop each other. And it's just intense. And then this next one will basically cover on the fallout of that. It's basically ramifications of a terrorist attack and all that stuff. And then you go online with the other two.
What time period are they in? Past, present time, future?
Well, the thing, the same present time as where it is, like you kind of go different political aspects. Like this is kind of how I'm looking at the world like today, and so this is 2026. So the next one won't be out for another 3 years, maybe. So it's more or less how I look at life now for making the baseline story. Then I'll add in and differentiate different stuff as the world goes on and stuff. That's what I tend to keep it like quite realist. So like the first one I wrote just before the Queen died, so I was like I won't change that. But for the second one I do emphasize that there is a king now instead of a queen. So it's that sort of real life events I try to cover too. But I
Okay.
try not to point, yeah. But I try not to keep like to specific parties or anything like that. I keep it like very present, very feely, that you can adapt to any way you like. But keeping like the truth, like this is how people view the government, or you view spies, or view different parts of the world at this point in time.
Now, obviously, you were living in England, and I'm over in Canada. Have you lived in England your whole life?
Yeah, I've been born here and lived in that life, but I do travel a lot, so trying to see the world and stuff. So that does impact how I write stuff in ways and different characters, and just I try to meet as many people as I can from different worlds and different backgrounds, so that influences my way I look at life and look at characters and how you write them.
I think travel is amazing for that. It
Mm.
does let you see the world from a different perspective
Mm.
and other people's influences and other cultures as well.
Yeah, like particularly for this book, The Week, I did go and spend a week in Serbia because my main villain is from Serbia, so I wanted to actually live in that culture. Because even when I was out there, you learn stuff that you would never learn or just Googling or just research online. You would understand how people talk, the way they actually interact with each other, how just the history about them, how they view their own past and stuff. Like, and it's very crucial, that stuff. Like, there is stuff I've written and stuff character moments I would never get unless I went there and spoke to the people. And annoyingly enough, because I've done so many tour guides, the tour guides love to talk about their own history and stuff. So it's like it's very engagement for them. So they just want to talk about their own selves and their past families.
That's so awesome that you went there to be able to rate your villain, more authentically. That's what a cool
Oh,
experience
yeah.
that would have been.
Yeah, like because funny enough, I've learned how to shoot a gun basically for this book. Because even when I was there, I went to a specific place in Prague when I was on holiday, and I just found out you can go to a gun range with like some special forces ex-soldiers there. And even they said that all we see in Hollywood, bullshit, all bullshit. So this is how you hold the gun. This is what you're meant to do. You're meant to breathe in like that, hold the gun, never like you saw it always. They always hold your trigger, just your finger above the trigger like that. They say never, always like that with just above. So it's like tricks like that, so you just get the right detail. It's like and it affects maybe what like one line or one sentence in the book, but that makes it more authentic and more real
Definitely. And
for
that's
me.
stuff that yeah, sure, you can read about it, but unless you've actually done it, it's not going to ever be the same. So, oh, that's so neat.
Yeah.
What's been the most challenging part of bringing a book into the world? Like the publishing process, editing, just getting started? What was the hardest thing you found?
Well, it was different. For the first one, it was basically a sense of trying to figure out how to write it. Like you can read as many books as you like. You can do course stuff. But even I was saying to someone earlier, but like the best way you can learn to write is just to write. Like you have to be able to figure it out on your own and just try and get through it. And so I spent a lot of time with the first one, just trying to figure out. Like when I figured it out, it took me 10 months then later to rewrite the entire book in the correct way a book should be written. But it took me a year and a half to figure that out, and I would never got there if I didn't. So it took all that process, all that writing process to get there. And that's the most difficult thing I found the first one. The editing side is quite easy. Like you just need to find good editors. And that's hit and miss sometimes. Like you can find ones who like don't give as much detail or not really how much they want to give feedback and stuff. So the first one I did was one in America, and so it was like I didn't find them that good of editors and stuff. So for the second one, I found out because then I had published ones in book fairs. I found someone who recommended their editors, and they were great. Like they gave a lot of feedback, they did a lot of back and forth as well. They're happy to do back and forth because that's for some of the real trick. Like sometimes an editor will just like, here's your edits, give it to you. They edit it, and there you go. They don't want to ask follow-up questions or anything like that, which can hurt. Like thinking, all right, I want to get a different opinion and stuff, but they don't want to communicate about it, which does suck. But physically, in terms of publishing, it's very easy to do it now thanks to Amazon. Like the way they have the entire thing set up from like KDP, you can basically just upload it, properly do it, and just fill out the details. And they got a lot of useful tutorials and stuff, and so that's quite easy to do. The one thing I do for that is the formatting, because that just sucks. Like when you write, you're specifically writing a Word document, well, most people are, and that's set to a different size, and so you have to kind of basically shrink it down. And how you can do it sometimes just sucks. Like most books are 5.5 times 8, so you get really small. So I did mine 5.5, 8.5, which is quite a little bit bigger, like comic books, but it's quite fine because once you squeeze it down, your pages then increase massively. Like if I did mine in like actual book size, right, it would be another 50, 60 pages onwards because you're just squeezing everything in. So the trick is basically you're doing line sentences where that little gap between the first sentence and the sentence below between each sentence is just a little bit smaller. And so all those little tricks like that to bring the pages down. Otherwise, you're just looking at a massive
And how do you learn that stuff when you're doing it on your own?
Yeah, like honestly, like that one was the most difficult thing to do just for the second one, because I was doing all by myself, and I can see now why people prefer just giving to someone just to pay and just because you can do that. But the real trick is because I learned it the first time, I can now do the second. So there was a really good YouTube tutorial who did a breakdown of it, because that's what you're gonna get. It's like you want someone to give you a physical play-by-play breakdown of you click this button, you click this, you select this. It's when in everything I've done, if you get someone like that, that's ideal. So that was a great one. And also KDP does love all useful word links and like help sheets and stuff, which are quite good. But most times, sometimes you do have to like ask other authors or stuff like how they did it, what sort of formats they use. And so sometimes that works, but sometimes you get ones who don't really want to communicate and stuff, so you find that a bit annoying. But yeah, it's a lot of researching it yourself.
YouTube is awesome too. I know for myself, similar to you, when I started this podcast, I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't any editing skills. I didn't know how to make thumbnails, and I found so many helpful videos on YouTube that just really have broken it down. And I just decided I was going to start, so I got my first 9 episodes out, and now I'm kind of in the process of polishing everything, elevating everything a little bit. But if I hadn't started, I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn.
Exactly. Like if you don't do the work at the beginning, once you do the work at the beginning, everything else afterwards comes so much easier. And that's why I just jumped right into writing the third book and planning the fourth and fifth book, because I have all that knowledge learning from writing the first 2 books. So just like I can just do this now. It's the easiest bit now. And thinking back 6 years ago, literally when I was in one point in the car just screaming, "Fucking hell, this sucks." Then now I'm like that's how you had to go through that to actually do anything properly now, to make it work, to make it better, and you have to go through all the work. And so yeah, if you don't, once you do it years later now, like we are now, it's just easier to do.
Now, when you got done the first write of the first book, did it seem like a very daunting thing to have to go back and like edit and polish that?
Yes, completely. Like, especially like it's once you go like the way I work is everyone has different processes. Once I write out how it looks I write it out hand, like I write out notes, bullet points, and stuff. And then the first draft is basically me just putting all that into a Word document, basically trying to think, all right, physically trying to write it. Then the second draft is basically me being like, okay, now I've got the entire thing written out in a really very basic unspelling check anything way, and it's basically trying to figure out what the actual story is there. Then the third draft is me actually trying to write it. So then I'm basically deleting words. Like right now, I've got on the book 3 draft, it's basically about over 100,000 words, and I know at least 40 of them I'm going to delete by the end of it. I could delete right now, and there's like me rewriting everything else, and that's the most daunting bit. This is the part I hate the most, because basically like just looking at it thinking, I know I sort of see where it's going, but I need to physically write it down. And you're going back and forth until you get something that works. Like I once spent an entire day at work thinking about a sentence and a point, trying to think, how can I make this point work? How can it work? I got in the car at the end of just after 5 o'clock, started driving up and realized, oh shit, that was it. Because it just hit me, and it literally just hit me thinking, oh no, just get the other character to say it and it's done. And it's like, oh yeah. And it's about that stuff. You literally are daunting thinking, I don't know how to write half the stuff, and just figuring, and it's just a case of just figuring it out. but it's the most sucky part of.
At what point in the process do you share any snippets of the book with other people?
That's the weird thing. I don't to actually. I share it. I share it with the editor. I shared the second one with the editor just after a year and a half of me knowing. All right, I know what the story is. I know what's going. So I now need the editor to
Yeah.
do her bit. Like for me, it's a, like I've never actually. No one's ever read anything like in progress because I think you read because I'm not because it's a weird thing reading something that's not actually finished book. Like you're reading a draft version of something. You're basically reading a draft version of a paragraph, and it's like people can hardly tell half the stuff with it. So it's like, yeah. So sometimes because it's nice. So I do need someone physically to read it at some midpoint way, so I can just sense of like a general sense of like, just tell me if it's working, and they're like, yeah, it's fine, and that's what I need. But then when it comes to the editing point, I usually will go to that point or get a professional to start working on it once I myself know, oh, okay, I've done everything I need to get to this point, and now I need someone else to help me point out what's not working, what's not, and that's kind of how I go. But it's different from some people I know who always ask, like in the beginning, or like ask their partners and stuff, to, like just read drafts over again and think. But I can't do that because I know the story better than anyone. I know the story better than anyone, so I only know when it's the point where it's ready to someone else to work on.
Has an editor ever had like a really opposing opinion about a certain part in the book, and how do you handle that?
Yes, it literally was a weird one because in not going too much spoilers away in this in the week, but there's a certain element like a very scientific element, and it's sort of sense of like okay, it's kind of a sort of far-fetched thing, but in this sort of thriller element and sort of the way I describe it, it's
Okay.
believable. And that's sort of the trick you want to be. You never when it's stuff like this scientific, like actually no, I can say because I say on the back cover, it's a nuclear sort of weapon, but in the way I've got it, I write it out. I literally give you a sort of a scientific sort of breakdown of it and sort of an energy, sort of a simple way, so like the most basic person can understand that yes, this person in this environment is able to build you a bomb. And the way the writer was like saying it, it's believable, but it's just like that sense of like you kind of need to sort of sell it a bit. So I went back early on and rewrote it how simple was this device could be turned to a nuclear weapon, and so made that part there so it's more believable for the audience thinking, okay, this random person
Right.
could do that, which is sort of the backdrop of like because most of the time with spy thriller especially you sort of have that lenience with the audience and the reader because think okay these are extreme circumstances it's sort of blown up a bit so you can get that sort of you have that bit of the audience where they can go over the sense thing oh yeah I will believe this but you never want to go too far if don't want to do something ridiculous that they're going to take them out of a thing no that can't happen you have to kind of you have to properly keep one foot in reality and build a story around that
But
reality.
again, like you said, you do have a little bit of leeway. But yeah, it's interesting because this person, obviously, these editors, are good at their job and their opinion does matter. But at the end of the day, it's still your book, right? So
Yeah, and it's basically why I ask for editors like that. So someone who will disagree with a point and say, okay, this doesn't work, and this is why, and which is great because you're thinking, okay, how can I improve this on what they're seeing, what I don't, and then that's how you work into the
yeah,
flow
it doesn't do you
problems.
any good if they're just like, oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, like it just no, that's the worst sort of feedback I can get from anyone. Which I've always asked is when people have finished reading the book, say it's great, thinking, no, I need more. You can't just say that. I need an actual bit of details, like because you can't learn from someone saying
Yeah.
that's
Where
great.
did they struggle? Where did they find that they lost, focus? What did they really love?
Yeah.
Like, and why? Those are all important
Yeah.
things.
Even matter how harsh it might be, they might say something sucks. You need to hear it to make the what's there better.
Now, you're still working a regular job in addition to writing, is that correct?
Yep, I work 8 to 5 as a well, I work as a PDI parts advisor, which no one ever gets or understands. I literally describe it so many times on trips or something when they say what you do. So effectively, I work for a prep center for electric cars. It's a big market now, so I see all I deal with like the brand new cars. So my job is basically deal with the logistics side of getting all the mats, materials, plates in, running the eBay site and all this stuff, basically to ensure when the car's in, it's prepped straight away, it's done, and then boom, off to the customer, who could be anywhere in the UK. Literally, we do anything. Literally, we go from where we are, just from south, sort of south, just near London, and then just go to Scotland, Ireland, all the stuff. It's like all brand new cars. Like, because I'm not sure how it is in Canada, but company cars are a big thing now here because it's the only way you can now afford one of these big 40 grand four by
Right.
fours. They'd be £300 a month, and you have it for 3 years, and then you get a new one after 3 years if you stay with a company. It's a very good business. It's a very good thing because a lot of people do it because it's the only way you can get a car, and you get a big car as
And
well.
it's a big incentive to stay with that company.
Yeah, I once turned down a job. I know I have no, I have turned down multiple jobs where I could get more money, but what it means I have to work more hours. Like this job, I can walk to work, which is insane in any sort of environment to be able to do. But effectively, I can walk to work, and I only work 8 to 5. And there's a good leeway because the way the schedule is, I could be flat out busy for like 8 hours of 8 hours a day, and that last hour they don't care what I'm doing in the spare time. Or I could be flat out busy for 1 hour and be free for 8 hours, and that's the time I use to work. Like I grab any minute I can when at work, when there's not a car coming in, or there's not a pack coming, or some problem I have to solve out to basically do that. And that's the beauty. That's why I stay at this job. Like literally I could earn more money just going driving 20 minutes down the road to the next town, working in an actual dealership and get bonuses. But then I'm working 20 more hours a week. I go to work Saturday mornings, and it's like I don't want that. I literally am comfortable doing this. I prefer this.
And it's allowing you to do what you're really passionate about, which is the writing.
Yeah, like I literally put this in for a book for someone's doing research and asked me about this for their book. Most people are doing sort of these sorts of jobs and trying to find the spare time to do the sort of passions they want. And some people can't find a job where they got the sort of hours or the freedom and stuff. But for me, I've got that rare situation of I got that sort of balance, and I'll keep that balance no matter how much money more I could get anywhere else, because that's what's important to me. That's what I want to do. And so I'm more passionate and more happier about that. And I'm just a happy person for that.
I can really relate. I'm so fortunate. I have a job where I get paid well to be at a location, but I can do whatever I want during the day. So I have 12 hours a day that I'm getting paid, that I can work on my podcast, write, go to the gym. It's amazing. And, it's a sacrifice in the fact that I have to be, away from home and for 20 days at a time.
Yeah.
But the amount of time that I have here to work on my own stuff is amazing. So I'm just like, I'm going to stick with this while I work on all of my own goals, my own dreams. And it's honestly like the best setup I could possibly imagine. So growing up, what authors influenced you the most? Were you a big reader?
No, that's the only thing. I never read properly as a kid. I started it because for the first time in 2018, I had when I first entered the automotive industry, I had then an actual lunch hour. Like when you work at Tesco's, supermarkets, anything like that, you get 50 minutes here and there. So you can't really do anything in that. So for the first time in life, I had an actual dedicated 1 hour lunch break, and I had to take it. So I was like, well, I've got here. I just can't sit on my phone doing nothing for an hour. So at this point, when I basically had like the Game of Thrones, but I basically got the Game of Thrones, but just given to me by someone, because they just gave saying, here you like this show, you can read this. And so I was thinking, okay. And so I literally started with it. And so I started reading, because it was literally just 1 year before the end of the show, when the show was coming out. So I think, okay, I'm gonna read these and see and before the end of the show. And then so I started reading that, and then once I finished that, I was like, okay. Then I went out and got all the Harry Potter books, or like Lord of the Rings, His Dark Materials, all this stuff. Basically a lot of all the shows and films I've seen from my life that I've basically adapted a bit. I was like, okay, I want to read this book now. So basically, I got started on that. And so that's why I started reading. But in terms of, that's when I probably started reading, and how every day at lunch I'm just reading, and people just walk in and saying, oh, you're the guy who reads, saying, yeah, that's me. So, but the book that me influenced the most is a Swedish author called Steg Larsson, who wrote a book called Women Who Hate Men, but we've got translated in Internet America and stuff as The Girl with Dragon Tattoo series. So he wrote the original first three before he died of a heart attack, which is the ironic bit of all. But those books, I just love that character, that world, so that grittiness. Like that's what's most influenced me on me of the books, on my writing, especially that sort of character-driven stuff. Sort of the worlds these characters are, sort of the manicness, sort of realism, sort of how far you can go with violence and stuff like that. Stuff like is influenced me so much, because you get different thriller writers and stuff. So I look at them, thinking how they write, and try to learn as much tricks as I can. But I also read like romance books and stuff, or also sci-fi books, or like fantasy books, trying to pick up cherry bits of details. Because I've said to someone, like the best way to read is to read every genre, so you understand stuff. You read something like it's written now, read something that's written 200 years ago, like Pride and Prejudice, or read something, or read like different genres, read like comic books, like just read self-help books, or like biographs by different like people. Like I read Trevor Noah's book recently, which is great and stuff like that, or just like random books, and just try to get a sense of like understand how different authors write, so you can better improve your own skills.
Yeah, the more that you read and the more variety you have, I think the richer your own writing's going to be, for sure.
Yeah, so it's a trick I always see, thinking, oh, that's a good point there, or just like adapting how this character reacts to the situation, or how the author just writes an introduction to a scene or a building or anything like that. Like that sort of that's the sort of thing I'm always looking for. So that's why I'm always jumping between different authors, different genres, so you think a different sense of the worlds and stuff. And it helps as well because you're always learning something from a different book. Like even bad ones, you're always learning, okay, this is what is bad, but how to improve from it.
That's very true. Your own
Yeah.
characters, do things ever
Yeah.
go in a direction that you're not expecting? Like, does your own story ever surprise you?
And sometimes, like the way I work is I basically like do a bullet point jot line of basically how the story will go out, and that's very very loose. Like, and then in terms of writing, it's just filling in gaps. Like sometimes I change how different characters will react to situations, or just how their relation develops over time. Like one sense of the relationship I kind of was the main character's one. I don't want to give too much spoilers about how her whole arc's going to be over 5 books, and basically how the end. I didn't really think of the end point of. I didn't really get the end point until literally like 2 weeks before I was finishing publishing the second one. I was thinking, oh, this is how, because I realized this is what you should, because I had an idea for what different book, and then I realized, oh wait, if I do this book, I can do this book. Because the fourth one, I can say this, the fourth one is going to be like a whole undercover storyline where the main character is undercover, and the fifth one is ramifications of everything she's done and how her attitude and what she does in the fourth book questions her morality and her judgment in the fifth book, and so she goes basically rogue herself trying to stop a target that her bosses don't want her to. And then I figured out how that ending can then match on to everything I've been building towards in the second book and third book and fourth book of building how this character is someone who basically gives everything for the job but never leaves something for herself, and how that then costs her. So overall, all that stuff got developed just randomly. I'm thinking, oh shit, this is how it's going. This is where it's going to. I didn't know how it was going to end, because originally I had this big moment of like doing a Jerry Maguire moment where she comes, basically says all the stuff like Jerry Maguire does to her partner and saying, this is all I'm sorry for, realizing. And then writing into it is like, that's not who this character really, really is. Like at core, she's quite closed off. She doesn't want to really express emotions. She's really not someone who really openly has relationships or stuff. Like she's very closed off. And because of that, I realized that's not how it really ends. And then realizing this is how, then for the fifth book, how I know exactly how it ends, which is a good one because you know where you're writing to. You're writing to this point where this character is basically, I can't spoil, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a really cool point of thinking. You will see the hints of it throughout the third book and the fourth book, especially to get to that point and then to the final chapter on the fifth, which I know, which I really want to write, but I'm saving for until I probably start around the fifth.
What does your writing process look like day to day? You mentioned you'll do some at work.
That's the trick. Yeah, the trick is I will only work one chapter from. I would work chapter four. I'll go one chapter only. I would work consistently on that same chapter until I think it's done now, and when it's done, I then move on to the next. Because I've tried thinking since, this chapter really sucks. I really want, and it's funner to write the following ones. But I realize that's not working because I've tried that before, where you try thinking, all right, write the fourth chapter and write the 10th chapter, and realize you're back because those two are connected. But then you're missing out all the middle stuff where the small moments changed how Ren writes in the 10th, and because you're going back and forth, and doesn't work. So basically, when I work, I do my reports and stuff, print off that stuff, and then wait for, because the way the job works, I'm basically waiting throughout the day for stuff to come to me to sort out. So in that space time, it could be like a first thing morning or late afternoon. So I'm just working, so I'm writing on the chapters. Then when I get back home, I go for my run, do compress down, just watch TV and stuff, and then in the late evening, like, because I don't go to bed till like midnight anyway, so I'm that late point like 10 to 11 plus onwards is when I really get a good lot of writing done and just trying to flesh out stories and stuff. But it's always consistent to just work on the same chapter, otherwise it can get messy when you're going back and forth.
That's a late time to be writing, but if that's what works for you, I mean, that's...
No, I mean, it's a weird time, but no, sometimes because you're in dead at night, it's all pitch black outside, you just can sense it's very quiet. And it's thinking, all right, you're kind of in the head, because when you get in that headspace sometimes, you don't want to break it. I've once worked straight through to like 1 a.m. thinking, I don't want to ruin this moment. Like, literally when formatting the book, like 2 months ago, I was literally working dead into the night, realized I can't lose this now. I'm literally in the moment. You don't want to go, and I rather do that than like trying to start in the morning again or next following day, because you didn't lose that momentum.
Have you ever hit like a real block in your writing where you just got stuck?
It's never been block. Sometimes certain chapters, like there was on this one a very annoying chapter that I could not figure out. I kept changing back and forth on whose POV it would be, thinking, would it be the agents, would it be someone else, the person she's meeting there, and it kept playing back. And it was my editor who basically said the easiest way to do this is to strip back all your POVs and just keep it to your agent and your antagonist, and then that's the way I rewrote it. And so when I rewrote that chapter, same chapter again, into the agent's POV, I had it made much more sense, because the entire story then at this point the entire story was together, so it's very easy to see, okay, this is how you change it, that stuff. But that's realistically, sometimes it's mainly just like chapters, or sometimes a specific paragraph that I cannot get to work, and that just sucks more. Because like Brickball, like the entire story, I know how it works. Like that stuff I'm good at. When it comes to like the nitty-gritty, sometimes it's just like you get grounded down, like it's not working. You can't, you know it's not working. You can feel it when you're reading out loud. You're thinking there's something off about this. And that's why I hate. And sometimes you can spend weeks. I know I have sometimes sent back and forth thinking, okay, I'm gonna pick this up later when I can thinking in a fresh mind.
What do you feel like is something people misunderstand when you tell them that you're an author? Like, what's some kind of a misconception people have?
That's a good one. That you're rich. You say that, yeah. People always think that, oh, so you make a lot of money doing this stuff. But it's like nearly like it's what it's the same thing because sometimes you have to when you price a book, like especially like on Amazon or where you're on Amazon specifically or any sort of site like that, what you get is your royalty fee after everyone takes their stuff away is quite small. Like you have to kind of price it right exactly enough so you can make like $1 or a pound or anything like that off. So you're making some significant money, but you don't want to price up too much. But that's always a trick. If people say how many books you sold, how much money you're making from a thing, and it's not that. It's a very niche market when you think about it, because like it's a very specific thing of people like, especially. Well, actually, to be fair, people do read more ebooks now, and so that's a good thing to have. But like when people get paperbacks and stuff, it sometimes is hit and miss. Sometimes when I go to book fairs and stuff.
For someone listening who has always wanted to write a book or pursue some sort of creative dream but keeps putting it off, what do you have to say to them?
Oh, easy. Just keep doing. Like it was a very small percentage I heard someone say that only that many people actually fulfill and actually complete writing their books. Most people spend it like when I published 3 years ago, and some people asked me about it, about how they write books and all that stuff. I told them information like this, and 3 years later, they've done nothing. They've not progressed and not done anything with it because it's like, oh, something I'll do later on. It's like, but the trick is you need to commit to it. You need to actually find time for yourself, like every day, to find, even if it's like a paragraph or a sentence, to just write something out because that's the only way it's getting it done. You have to commit and be able to continually write, and just even if it's the smallest thing, just so you're actually doing something, just building a story. Because once you take a gap away for some people, they never go back to it, and since like you have to keep pushing yourself to do it, and that's the real trick. You just have to do the work, otherwise it's never going to happen, and you're just going to keep saying, yeah, I'll get down to it later, and later never happens.
That's really inspiring and definitely is going to motivate me to start dedicating an actual chunk of time to writing every day. So thank you for sharing that. Now, younger you, would you ever have thought that you were going to end up being a published author?
Oh no, like honestly, it was my fifth plan at the end of the day because plan A was originally to be in the Marines in the UK, but that didn't work out. Plan B was basically get a job in sort of creative field. That didn't happen through apprenticeship schemes. C was sort of retail manager at Tesco's supermarket. Yeah, that didn't work out through multiple changes in the bosses. Then the fourth was basically because I then at this point was doing college and went to the film school to learn the skills course, was trying to get a job like that, like a full-time job. That didn't work out. Fifth was basically was me just trying to make my own work and try to see if I can get that self-funded to go happen. It sort of happened to a degree. Like I had a few good interviews. I was able to get a really good interview at a job that I really wish I got, where basically I was down to the final two of the apprenticeship scheme for working in this massive corporate. It was going to be so good, but they didn't give it to me because they didn't have the experience. I'm thinking it's an apprenticeship job. The people you want to have experience are not going to come do this job, and that sucked because that really I was so close to that one. And another one where I would have been running help run a production company in the form of law firm where you do all like internal videos and stuff like that. And that was I was like one like really good in me because I like all the work I've done and stuff. But again, lack of experience, so that never happened. So that's annoying. Like it's worse now trying to get a job like this compared to 6 years ago before COVID, and when I just sense of how many people I know have just not continued it. And so then from that, like writing, just being awful was just an idea point for plan like 5 and stuff. So yeah, I'm just lucky I'm actually doing some creative. Like that's one thing I just really wanted to do as a kid, which is to make, because I make stuff, Lego, paintings, all this stuff. And so writing is basically just an endpoint of where all that stuff was going to, just telling my own stories like this. And so that's why I really like, and that's the one thing I'm glad if I was able to talk to my previous self, that this will actually mean something later on. It's not just a random idea. It's not just the one thing you're good at is just making paintings, telling stories. It can be actually something, and something people will actually buy you.
I think sometimes things happen for a reason, and those jobs might have been cool, but you might not have had, the time to pursue some of your own personal creative projects. And now you've got, a good job, you get to live in a beautiful village, and you still are creating and on your own time schedule as well.
No, absolutely. Like honestly, if I did get one of the jobs, I wouldn't have made my own stuff. I would be completely focused working on that, on their stuff, on corporate stuff, their production outlets and stuff, so I would never really made my own stuff. So all that crap I went through was basically just trying to also, at one point, trying to be a middle finger to them, saying, "All right, you don't like me. Here's what I could do by myself." So it's like in your face. But sort of like that sort of attitude is like also burned to keep going. Is like from all those failures and people saying you're not good enough, all that shit, and just like get to the point thinking, "All right, I am actually good enough."
I had somebody tell me I was the least creative person they had ever met, and I was just like, you know what? You're wrong. And I'm gonna go out and just, actually start being creative and making things, and it's been awesome. So
It's a great journey to go on.
yeah.
Sometimes it sucks at the beginning, but in the midpoint from that near ending, it's really cool when you actually just.
There's a lot of us too that are, in the same boat, balancing a normal job with your creative passion. And I think that's the reality these days. We can't all just be starving artists living in an attic. It sounds romantic, but it's not.
Reality. Like I think I know roughly only a handful of people are full-time, properly committed still to freelancing and happy to find work. But they're only like in the UK. Like I knew one person who moved to Los Angeles and now moved back home and then having to restart again, basically doing all their careers because it just dried up completely doing freelance work in America. But in the UK, but because in the UK all the films basically film here still, like they ought to find work and they're able to keep going to. Like I know, like yeah. So yeah, it's an annoying thing, but it's like essentially like they're constantly jumping between different jobs just for 10 weeks at a time, if lucky, and just trying to build a career from that.
Did it feel really vulnerable to put your first book out there for the world? Were you nervous of what people were going to think of it?
Yes, effectively so, because at this point it was like a lot. When I did the first one and finished it, it was a sort of proud moment, but it's like a lot of time I'd gone to thinking, okay, people will like it, but how much I like it is a different opinion, and so you have all traditions of that. But the first time, because I sort of make a big reveal about work, how I did it and stuff, so I didn't really tell anyone I was writing it. That was the annoying thing. So when I posted it and stuff, people were like, "You wrote a book?" It's like, yeah, which was a sort of shock experiment I wanted to see. Thinking, all right, here we go. Here's something.
What a sly thing to do. That's so funny. You probably surprised so many people.
Yeah, like parents didn't know. No, yeah, literally saying, "Here's what," like she showed saying, "Oh, what's that? Oh, it's the book I've written." It's like, what? Saying, yeah, I told you I was writing. Well, yeah, I was told you I was writing something, didn't I? It's like, here it is.
I love that. That's awesome. Did you dedicate the first book to anyone?
Then not. I did a different thing where I dedicated to like the passionate to creatives, effectively. I wrote it as dedicated to everyone who dreams of the impossible. Let this novel be a testament to its reality. Never stop pursuing your passion, no matter what anyone else says to you, especially yourself.
That's really beautiful, Jay.
Yeah. The trick is to do something different for each time. So for the second one, I wrote it. In a world of uncertainty and turbulence, never stop pursuing what you love. It will take time, but the reward will be more fulfilling than you ever imagined.
Very inspired.
Yeah, so it's just cool. I always read books and thinking I was dedicated to a person. I'm thinking, nah, actually, I'm going to try something different, just because it's like inspired to everyone. Because basically, when you're picking up a book for an independent or self-published author or anything like that, it's a more passionate version. So it's something else. And so I wanted to give a little message when they read it, thinking, oh, okay, this is a true act of love someone's done and committed to and stuff.
And that's really a gift, the reader having chosen to pick up your book and read it, and for you as an author for putting that story out there for them to read.
That's a true moment. There's like a sense of like, here's something very personal, very something, but I hope you yourself are inspired to do something creative from it.
Okay, well, we're gonna wrap things up here. Before we do, I do have one last question for you. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
It's gonna suck writing. It is. You're gonna have a lot of moments where you're constantly doubting yourself. You're thinking it's not working, it's shit, it's crap, that makes no sense, no one's gonna like it, but you need to do the work. You need to be able to constantly go back to it, keep rewriting it, keep reading it. You know the story's there. You know how good it is. It can be, but you have to just keep working at it, and it's gonna be better. And it's every time you rework it, it's gonna improve. It's gonna flow better. You're gonna find more enjoyment, and then once you keep doing it, you're gonna find a love for it, and then you're never gonna stop.
That is a really great piece of advice. I hope that my listeners out there can hear that and take it to heart and not be afraid to just go start something.
It's true. Like, if you take anything from it, is that I do want people to be able to think, okay, as any random person can write a book, and it just takes the passion and commitment to actually commit to writing it, but it is a very trial by error sort of situation, and you're constantly going to find yourself doubting yourself all the time. But you need to be able to hold that doubt and keep pushing forward to make the story it can be.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, it's a pleasure.
And to everyone out there listening, we'll see you next time on Phosphenes.